Deus Ex is honestly one of my favorite games of all time. It's full of a lot of intrigue, mystery, interesting characters, and a lot more that make it one of my favorites. I also enjoyed Deus Ex Human Revolution, which is the prequel to the original Deus Ex. Now, with all that being said, what about the sequel, Deus Ex Invisible War? This game was developed by Ion Storm, published by Eidos Interactive, and released in 2003. When this game came out, it met favorable reviews, but not as favorable as the first game. Many of the complaints, especially to PC elitists, were the fact that it was simplified to better fit consoles. But even with people's complaints, is this game still worth playing? Let's take a look as we analyze the graphics, audio, and of course, the gameplay. As always, let's start off with the graphics, and since this game was made in 2003, those are the standards that we will be using. This game features a superb lighting engine that really fits in with the atmosphere. Along with the lighting engine, this game features a heavy dose of ragdoll physics. These physics add a little bit of satisfaction when you blow somebody away with the shotgun or blow somebody with explosives. However, it's not as satisfactory as in other games such as Silent Storm. While the environments look good, this game has two fatal flaws with its graphics. The first flaw has to do with the character models and their animations, especially when they talk. It just seems very unnatural, and there were games during the time that did animations much better than it is here. The second fatal flaw is with its frame rate. This game constantly drops its frame rate, especially in combat and when a lot is going on. Even with high-end machines of today, I still experience frame rate issues. Other than that, there's not much else to say about the graphics, and that's why the graphics get a 7 out of 10. While the game features a robust lighting engine and some good-looking environments as well, the animations as well as the frame rate really drag this score down. Next up, we got the audio, and the first thing I would like to talk about are the sound effects. Honestly, the sound effects are very well done. Each object has its own sound effect, and it sounds just the way you would believe it sounds, such as the shotgun sounding very impactful, sounds of explosions, hitting things on the ground, and many other sound effects that really immerse you into the game. The next thing I would like to talk about is the voice acting, and it's a little hit and miss to me.
Handle this disturbance. Just answer my questions. Who do you work for? All non-enclave workers must leave the area until security can be restored.
That's one of them.
Some of the voices are well done, but one thing I noticed is that everyone sounds very similar to each other. Now, the last thing to comment on the audio is, of course, the music. Honestly, there's not that much music in this game, but when the music does sound, it is appropriate. There is a lot of silence, but the silence feels atmospheric and it really helps to put you in the mood for the game. So, with everything said and done, this game gets an 8.5 out of 10 for audio. This honestly would have gotten a better score, but the voice acting really holds it back. So now let's talk about the gameplay. The first thing you're going to do is hit new game, and from here you're able to pick the difficulty, the interface color, and the portrait of your character. For the first time you get to have a male or female character, which is pretty cool. So when you finally start playing this game, you are the role of Alex Denton. He's related to JC Denton and Paul Denton, but not by blood. You'll learn along the way as you play this game. As the first game, this game is a cyberpunk action adventure RPG game. However, one thing that you'll notice quickly is that the RPG elements are a bit lacking this time around. The only way to really improve yourself in this game is not through experience points or leveling up things, but from acquiring biomods. Now, the biomod system is extremely flawed because you can only pick one of 3 biomods to use for each slot. Before in the original Deus Ex, biomods were part of the game, but you had more mods to choose from. Here, everything feels very restricted, like for the feet one, you can only be very quick or very quiet. The cranial mods are definitely the worst because you have to make very tough choices. You have to choose from hacking or cloaking. Now, the people that have benefited for both back in the day are really going to feel limited when you play this game. I chose hacking because I feel like that's a main essential part of the game, and stealth is just a choice. However, I do feel a little empty-handed when I did not have the cloaking mod. While some of the RPG elements do feel simplified, there are some things that are still well done, such as choice. There are still many decisions that you are able to make that affect the game in the short run as well as for the long term. Many decisions you make early on will be reflected on you one point or another. Just like the original Deus Ex, there are multiple ways to progress through a level. You could sneak through a vent, use your cloaking device, go guns a-blazing, and whatever else you feel like is appropriate for the situation. Now, the next thing I would like to talk about is the level design. While I did admit in the graphics that this game looks beautiful, and right now, as you can see, it looks amazing with all the lights, the world is very small. But still, it is nice to have little open worlds like this where you can explore. While these worlds aren't that big, there are still some side quests that you can take if you feel the need to. So the first thing I did was go to the club, and it wasn't as exciting as I hoped it was going to be. However, there were a few quests that I was able to do and a few things that I was able to learn along the way that aided me later in the game. I learned about the Omar and their black markets and how to get more biomods. One issue that I have with this game is that this game seems to be way too much focused on gunplay rather than being stealthy. There's nothing encouraging you to play this way, unlike in Deus Ex Human Revolution. While you weren't necessarily rewarded too much in the first game for being stealthy, it really was a preferred method because you weren't that accurate with your handguns, rifles, and rocket launchers early on in the game. The gunplay to me, however, is a bit of a mixed bag. My issue with it is that most of the guns don't feel impactful, such as the pistol and the machine gun. They just don't have the impact that the shotgun and the sniper rifle have, even though those two weapons don't feel as powerful as they should be. I will admit, however, that the sniping was one of the more enjoyable parts of the game. Another thing to note about the guns is that you're able to mod them from weapon mods. You find these throughout the game scattered all over the place or from doing various objectives for people. However, I played this game the entire way through and not once did I find a silencer, so I was carrying a pistol for no reason. A lot of these mods are very useful, such as this one where it destroys the windows without tripping up the alarm. This is invaluable in many situations. Since there is a lot to explore in the levels, there is a lot of platforming that is involved. You can climb up ladders, jump through platforms, and a bunch of other things, and it really immerses you in the game, especially in the stealth segments or the times where you feel like using stealth. However, one thing I would like to say about discovering these side places is I constantly needed to use multi-tools because keycards and other ways to get around things are very hard to find. It seems that I was constantly using up my multi-tools throughout the game. The inventory system has been very simplified and you only have a few slots to go. You gain extra slots as you level up in the arms department for the specific biomod. However, there's a really weird glitch about this, especially when you have more than one multi-tools. Sometimes the multi-tools don't stack and they take up their own separate inventory slots, which makes it very confusing and it doesn't get fixed. As I stated before, just like the first game, there are many ways to complete your objectives. As you can see here, I hacked a security buy in order to destroy my enemies. This is awesome since it retains the design choice of the original game by allowing multiple ways to complete an objective. Now there's certainly a lot more things I can talk about regarding the gameplay, but the last thing I want to comment on is the story. Just like in the first game, your choices ultimately affect the outcome of the game. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, the first half of the game is not all that great regarding the story, and you don't feel that motivated to continue pressing on. However, when the Illuminati comes into play and you learn about the whereabouts of JC Denton, the game becomes fantastic and really feels like a true sequel to the Deus Ex franchise. All that mystery and intrigue of the first game returns halfway through this title, and the game really shines here. However, it is bittersweet since by the time you meet JC, the game is pretty much almost over. I was also interested to see characters like Pow3rh0use return, and honestly the game needed more of this. The new characters seem to lack motivation, and there's not a real villain in the game. I guess that's the point since the game focuses on moral ambiguity. Heck, even JC's plan doesn't seem all that holy. Either way, this game gets an 8 out of 10 for the gameplay. While there's a lot of simplification, some good and some bad, the gameplay is still enjoyable to play through. While the levels are small, there are still a million ways to get through them. While I'm not very fond of the dumbed down RPG mechanics, some of the biomods were very enjoyable to use, especially the hacking one. Now let's go for the closing thoughts, and the first thing I would like to say is this game is not as good as the first game. But honestly, that is to be expected. The first game is seen as a pure masterpiece, so to match that would be an amazing. But still, this game holds its own, and while it does feel like a simplified version of the first game, I believe that it's a true sequel to the Deus Ex franchise. Many people might disagree with me for many reasons, and I understand, but this is just what I wholeheartedly believe. And for that, I believe that this game deserves an 8 out of 10 for its overall score. As I stated before, this is a worthy sequel for Deus Ex. It isn't the mind-blowing game that the first one was, but it is adequate enough to stand on its own. I certainly recommend it to fans of the Deus Ex franchise, in order to continue the story. Either way, thank you for watching my video. This is Pow3rh0use, signing off.
This is the consensus we have created. Our unity will soon be absolute. The remaining boundaries are vanishing. Yes, share your mind with everyone. Open yourself. Your needs are the needs of all. Let us understand and be transformed. Yes, transform each other and transform yourselves. The only frontier that has ever existed is the self.